Hi there, Ron Villaver here of Variable Play, and welcome to LarongAtin. With
Hi, good
me,
evening.
Hello, good evening.
Mhm.
Sir Freddy,
Hi,
and
hi, it's Nico.
Nico.
Mhm.
Hi everyone. So, our monthly episode kind of missed Halloween just
Mhm.
by a little bit. Just by a little bit. Turns out, like in other, I was listening to content creators, their Halloween is really not on November. It's really October, celebrating
Mhm.
it right before the day, and then after that, it's Christmas.
Mhm.
The thing is, there's not a lot of Christmas games. There's a lot of Halloween themed, like horror themed games, board games,
Mhm.
but very few Christmassy games. There's
Hmm.
like
Mhm.
Secret Santa.
If there's some, it's usually just a reskin.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
a
Yung
very
Huh, well, no, never thought
yeah.
about that.
So there are definitely way more horror games that can fit into the Halloween
mhm.
theme because
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
more wider genre. Christmas is very zoomed in, but in the
Mhm.
meantime, we're gonna
Mhm.
catch up.
Although in the Philippines, the Christmas season is much longer.
That is
Mhm.
true. We
Mhm.
we we just pause for a few days for Halloween.
Mhm.
It starts at September as soon as it has the BR at the ending of the month,
Mhm.
and then all the way to December. Maybe extend to January, and then a little bit of February. Was
Mhm.
that Three Kings is the end,
Yeah.
right? Of
Yeah.
Hanggang
the
Chinese New Year pa.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay.
In our household nga, they've been discussing, oh, when are we gonna set up the Christmas tree? Tapos my sister and I are like, wait, it's Halloween first. It's not Christmas. They've been thinking about setting up the Christmas tree since the start of October. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Hey, Bob.
Hi. Mhm.
Bob and I are gonna be trying out some solo games. Well, not really solo. So
Mm.
they're like war games. So Bob, he's a fellow board gamer, but
Mm-hmm.
he's into um political games, war games, that type of
Mm.
genre. Two player. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes, Bob. It's two player.
What was that? There was a contest on just I don't know designing historical games.
Right.
What do you call that? The some fancy some fancy European name. The something award. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Zambrian
So
or something.
normally we play. Well, I got to try a few. I haven't tried a lot, but mostly if you have GMT games,
Mm.
it's around that title. And Bob says it's is it Zenobia?
Zenobia, that's one. Yeah, the Zenobia
There you go.
Award. Uh-huh.
There you go.
Si Robert ang expert sa mga ganyang klaseng games.
Yes.
There was a there was a game, a war game that came out, I don't know, last year. But the innovation they said was the rule book. See, Geoff Engelstein posted
Mhm.
about it. That like this is such an innovation in rule book design on how they did the rule book. I forgot the game. Had something to do with the ships and naval battles. I think it was like an Arctic naval battle game. So there.
Mhm.
So I actually used that template for the rule book of Trece.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah. Mhm.
Cool, 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 cool. So before we start with the
Mhm.
episode, what have you guys been playing or doing, designing or painting, anything on hobby related? How
I've
about
been really
go
yeah,
ahead? Go
I've
ahead,
been
Nico.
really busy, so I haven't been playing any board games. But lately, I finally was able to open my to start playing. What's this? Hyrule Warriors, Age of Calamity, the prequel to Breath of the Wild, but it's
Oh, okay,
the
okay.
Dynasty Warriors. That's a video game. Yeah,
Right, right, right.
I bought that game like I don't know when it came out, but I only just started playing it now. So yeah, video games have a shelf of shame too, I guess.
No, yeah, absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. From mobile games, I have a fairly large collection of board game apps.
Oh, me
I
same.
I don't think I have played 80% of them.
Yeah, it's whenever they go on sale, I just buy everything and then I
Yeah, it's like
flip it over
woo,
them. Yeah,
buy
same.
everything, 50 pesos, 99
Yeah,
pesos.
50 peso board games. Yeah.
Yeah. But I recently I talked about it in our last episode at Open Game Night. Um, Crying Sons. It's a
Okay.
roguelite. So I just recently
Ooh.
learned what roguelike and roguelite
Mm,
means and like what is the difference between the two. And roguelike is
okay.
basically procedurally generated. You sort of
Mhm,
can rerun the dungeon over and over.
mm,
Roguelite, every run that you do, you have something that carries over to your next run. Like a
mm,
skill, an item, a weapon, something. So in my case, Crying Sun's sci-fi themed
mhm,
game. So one the pilots that I have encountered, I can now reclone them when I get
mm,
cloned back into. Basically, you're traveling through space, and it's super far. The normal super fast travel is no longer available, so it takes you a
mm,
lifetime to get from one node to another. So
mm,
they reclone you to the next one. So you sort
mm,
of do the run. At the very
mm,
end of the run, you die,
mm,
and you get recloned for the next sector, so that you can eventually reach your
mm.
destination. So, pretty
It,
cool.
Do you actually reach it or it's never ending?
Oh, so the game that I played, Crying Suns, had an ending. Actually, it had branching endings, so very very interesting.
Mm,
Bob says, I've been playing Super Robot Wars 30, mecha game of 22 shows from Bandai.
mm,
Sana they make a board game too. That's true.
mm.
How about you, Sir
Nice.
Freddy? Painting anything new? Or
Mm,
Speaking of
mostly
shelves, oh,
mostly I painted I think two Underworld's warbands.
mm,
So medyo marami ako na paint and I've been playing BattleTech.
oh,
whoa.
like PC
Yeah,
BattleTech.
which
Yeah,
Battletech?
the PC one.
Okay,
Kasi
Mm,
nice.
nag-sale siya on Steam, so tried it out and then yun.
grabe.
Is
The
this the
last battle.
BattleTech that's like first person view or the
No,
third
it's
person?
yung third ano siya eh.
Oh, from the guys who did Shadowrun.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
Hairbrained Studios.
Yes, yes, I love that game.
And
I love that game. I can't
Sila
run it
Jordan
though.
Weisman. The
Yeah.
the game made by Jordan Weisman.
Yes.
So,
the
Very
last
well,
battle
interesting.
yeah.
the
Very
last
interesting.
battle tech I played was Battletech 3 Mech Warrior, which was like I don't know 1996 or something.
I played something similar to the BattleTech of today. I
Mhm.
just can't remember the name, but it was something like that where Mech Commander or something, where you have your mech and you're commanding your troops, and kind of the same thing with BattleTech. But this one, what's really nice about BattleTech is the story, right? That there's
Mhm.
some really intricate storytelling and world building that's properly done. A
Mhm.
small preview to our talk for today.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But yeah, I wish I have a machine that can run BattleTech, because my machine right now will overheat.
Mhm.
Macs do not like playing games.
Yeah.
Sad life.
Mhm.
Alrighty. So today we will be talking about um, so Nico, well, Sir Freddy, Nico, and I would be attending different uh, playtesting meetups, and we have one called Unpub, but it's not the only uh, sort of game design playtesting meetup. There's also very zoomed in playtesting meetups for specific games. There are sort of very casual. You guys just have a game night and you have a section for um, uh, playtesting games, and then we have the unpub, which is what Nico has been organizing. Can you introduce everyone, how did unpub start in the Philippines, and
Um,
how long has
okay.
it been?
Unpub has wow. I don't remember when exactly. So I'm not actually one of the organizers of the first
The
Unpub.
founders of the
Yeah,
unpub
the
Philippines,
founders.
yes.
Yeah, so the founders of Unpub Philippines are sila Julian, si who else? Si Asset, si Tonichi, si RJ, si Jars. So anyways, so they asked. So Unpub is an international playtesting organization. I
Right.
think it's the most popular playtesting like meetup organizations would be Unpub, Protospiel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Playtesters
so
Guild.
yeah. So they organize these meetup events. People just come and then they bring their games and then they play test. So
Right.
the founders they asked the Unpub international community if they could use Unpub for the Philippines. So then they set that up, and there were a few events, and then the founders all became really busy, so they were not able to manage the group. So I volunteered to step in and continue it. And then, yun, so we started meeting every month, every second Saturday of the
Yeah,
month.
this is before the
Mhm.
COVID
A
hit,
long
right?
time. Yeah. Unpub
Yeah.
started in 20, I'm, I'm guessing 16. So it's actually been running for like 5 years
Right.
or more. The first
This is
sessions
the
were
physical meetup, right? So
yes, the
running for
physical
5
meetups.
years. The
Mhm.
Facebook group has been there long before that.
Longer. Yeah.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
lot. Because I remember QNV was being formed. I was sharing it already in Unpub.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
that was before I even saw any Unpub meetups.
mhm. Yeah. So, yun,
So
it's been
normally in an Unpub meetup, what happens?
yun. So, um, before we would come up with a schedule, like people would sign up the slot of I'm going to play test at this time. That's because there weren't that many people coming in, so we needed to like make sure there were actually enough play testers, enough designers to play. But later on, it started to there a lot of people started to come. There would
Right.
be sessions where like 10 to 20 people, so there'd be just a couple of tables. Anyone can just set up. It's a very informal event. It's just like, oh, sino nang gusto mag-playtest? So, sige, dun kayo. Tapos set up nyo na dun. Tapos yon, and then
Right.
we try to make sure everyone who came gets to play, gets to test their designs. And then we everyone goes back to the drawing board. They come back next month, and then again and again. A lot of some of the published games locally were play tested in Unpub.
Yeah.
Um, Internationally, there's one game that had a successful Kickstarter that was play tested in Unpub. It's Night Market. See, because the designer si Adam is based here in Manila, so yeah, he brought it there.
Yeah, Folded Wishes also went
Oh
through
yeah,
the all
Folded
of
Wishes.
its incarnations,
Yeah.
uh, from
I'm
from
so
its.
sorry, I forgot.
It's okay
Yeah.
because the final form of Folded Wishes is so far from what has been tested inside
Yes. Yeah.
Unpub. So
Yeah.
most people don't sort of like r-
Yes.
recognize it immediately,
Uh-huh.
because they always remember it as a very small game. The original
Mm-hmm.
is Folded Wishes was smaller than this, but yeah, it was super battle tested there. All sorts of feedback came in, and
Oh,
it's a
I just commented. October 2015 was the first Unpub. So actually,
ah
7 years.
whew,
7 years. Yeah.
congratulations. Yeah, but unfortunately, we were still able to, Nico, you were still able to continue on, right? Even during
Mhm.
the pandemic, it's not as easy
Yeah, yeah.
because it's digital and you kind of have the schedule is a little bit more complicated, working with the
Mm-hmm.
tools is a little bit more complicated, but we were still able to run this
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on a fairly regular
Yeah,
occasion, right?
fairly. Yeah. I think the last one was, so there was none this October. I think September was the last one. And the thing was, what happened in September was everyone kind of finished their designs. They're like, everyone had come to a point like, oh, my design's pretty good. So I guess that's why October, November, there's nothing really to play test because, yeah, a lot
Right.
of the people who would go to Unpub weren't able to haven't, the transition to online because you have to learn a whole new skill set of setting
Yes.
it up
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
tabletop simulator, tabletopia. So we're really wishing that it will, like, hopefully we were talking about this earlier, that once we can do face to face meetups again, a lot of the old unpub people will probably
Oh,
come back to the
yeah.
picture.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pushing my order ready to 1/4 pod. As soon as we get an unpub physical meetup, I'm sending some stuff for prototype.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
because I'm still like excited to feel the game, physically played. It's nice
Yes.
to see it working online, but you want to be able to see how it really behaves with people. There's a
Yeah,
different
definitely.
UX that you have to
Yes.
deal with as compared to dealing with games online.
Hmm.
So through our experience
Hmm.
over the years of running Unpub, especially you, Nico, because you're
Hmm.
mostly hosting these events.
Hmm.
You and then running with our Unpub, our Halloween theme.
Hmm.
So you probably have encountered peculiar or maybe what's a good way? Um, not not the unexpected people or behavior that kind of caught you off guard, right? In
Hmm.
in something that surprised you. Oh, apparently that's a thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so we want to share with people. So
Hmm.
again, this is not to we're not saying these people are not welcome. Of course,
Yeah,
everybody is welcome to
of
try out
course.
and play more games and design
Hmm.
games and try themselves. What we want to share with you is
Hmm.
uh, sort of experiences that we've had, and we just
Hmm.
made some funny names. And again,
Hmm.
this is only to make a comedic episode
Yeah,
in theme of Halloween.
yeah.
But
This is a corollary to the one Ron made.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. So we did one last week where
Horror
we
stories.
horror stories on people that attend game night. So this
Mhm.
one is people that attend Unpub.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or attend play testing meetups.
that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
not necessarily Unpub play testing meetups, or
Mhm.
even sometimes as you play testing at the game night.
Mhm.
There's sometimes this pops up too. So we're
Yeah.
gonna sort of go through a list. Nico has prepared the list.
Mhm.
But again, if this is
Let me just fix my charger.
our joke,
Mhm.
if you don't know
Yeah.
anyone like this,
No,
no,
we're
no,
not.
no.
We're not saying that if you're this person, you're not welcome.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yes.
We're just trying to enumerate like behaviors that you may want to avoid
Uh-huh.
uh, when you're pitching or you're playtesting your game para
Mhm.
maiwasan natin yung mga komplikasyon.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Tsaka,
and
oh, yeah, go.
yeah,
Ah.
it's really more of like we understand
Mhm.
where people are coming from,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but given the experience and the
Mm-hmm.
the lessons that we have learned, also getting games out there, getting them published, we also are coming from a different context, and that's why we can give some insight on these behaviors
Mhm.
because they don't necessarily apply or work well with how the rest of the industry actually works with game design and so forth.
Mhm.
So
All right, let's
we're
go.
gonna start. Good evening,
Okay.
Kenneth. By the way,
Hi.
yeah.
Right. So we
Ano din
made
yan?
this
Master
prototyper.
print prototyper, master print and play. Okay, cool, cool, cool.
Okay, right. So we
So,
made this list. Yeah. So actually, originally we wanted to make a list of spooky meeples you meet at a design meetup, which includes designers and playtesters.
right.
But we had so many, we split it. So this is now just the designers, the spooky designers, like scary behaviors that designers can exhibit. And
Mhm.
again, this is not to say that these are bad and stuff, because we understand like a lot of people who start their design journey, they're not really, it's not something you
Mhm.
learn in school, right? It's something you just show up at, and most of the
Right.
time people don't really know what to expect, and
Mhm.
they don't understand really the process. They're just there, they have a passion for it, and so sometimes um they're not gonna
Misconceptions.
meet, yeah, there are misconceptions, they're gonna not
Yeah.
meet expectations, and that's okay, as long as we
Mhm.
we grow. And that's why it's also important to have a good like playtest meetup culture that you can foster, and yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay,
Absolutely. Cool,
so
cool, cool.
let's go through it. So
So,
there's
una natin
Mhm.
is MMDA. Ay,
the
MNDA pala yun.
oh yeah, so I'll just intro
Go ahead,
this.
go ahead.
So
Go, 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 go. Go,
yeah,
Nico.
so playtesting is essential to game dev. It's a nice event, right? You meet a lot of like-minded individuals. But yeah, people can sometimes exhibit behaviors that, how can there's room for improvement. And so the way this also works is that these archetypes, these spooky design archetypes, they actually also exist with us. I'm guilty of a few.
Yes, I will
And
point out the ones I'm guilty of.
yeah,
Mhm.
so this the after this we describe each of these archetypes. We're going to also design how to handle, like if you meet a designer this way, what are some tips on how to handle that session with a designer who's like this, and also how to resist your inner that, like how do
Right.
you avoid, how do you, yeah, resist the temptation of being that kind of archetype.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Agree, agree.
let's go. So the first is the MNDA or the Merong NDA.
Ah,
So, yep.
si Sir
Um,
Freddy ang madalas nito.
yep.
I haven't
The
actually
MNDA.
experienced this at an unpub, but I've experienced this with a couple of people who have tried to pitch me games
Mm-hmm,
Mhm.
mm-hmm.
na not necessarily may NDA, pero talagang mahalata mong sobrang praning about their games. And
Yes.
yung meron nga akong storya na ano na I can't show you my game dahil baka gayahin mo. Parang, paano mo ipipitch sa akin? He doesn't even know that there's such a thing as an NDA, pero basically praning, he wanted me to agree to publish his game before he shows me the game, which
Mm.
how's that going to happen? So I never got to see the actual gameplay. I only got to see a couple of pieces which were ridiculous because they were they were made with pins. So
Mm.
they're actually pretty dangerous to touch.
Oh, okay.
Medyo talagang wala, dead end kami, 'di ba? So
Mhm.
that's what happens if you're too paranoid. You
Yeah.
usually end up with dead ends, and you
Yeah.
end up not actually showing your game.
Mhm.
Yeah. I met someone before
Uh,
um did a he had a sort of like a very unique mechanism for a puzzle game. Like actually more of a toy. But like he was asking if Ron, you can help me, or for Mighty, can you help me design it? Okay, can I see the game? Oh, I can't show it to you because you might like how will I design that game if I don't know
Yeah.
how it plays?
yeah, there's actually, even in the international board game Facebook groups, you see a lot of, about a lot of topics about this, because there are a lot of like newcomers who would come in and like, yeah, and I want to play test, but do
Need
I
an NDA,
know,
yeah.
do I need an NDA? Okay, so yeah, the MNDA is someone who's paranoid. They want to show you their game, but they are scared you're going to steal it. Um, so how do you handle an MNDA? Never sign an NDA. That's just, you just have to politely refuse and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sign your NDA. And if they don't want to show you the game, then that's just the end of it. You can't really do anything about it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Because the NDA, most NDAs have a not non-compete clause,
Yeah.
which basically means you cannot create a product that competes with what they showed you. But the thing is, they haven't showed you yet what it is, and they're not going to describe it in any way. So, like, what if you're working on a horror game and then suddenly they show you a
Oh,
horror game? Because you signed the NDA, you can get into legal trouble if you actually publish your own design that you were thinking of. So,
right.
yeah, just never sign an NDA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you resist your inner NDA? Because the thought of someone stealing your work is really scary, and it's something that I understand why some people would feel protective of it. Um, and well, first is that the board game industry has a culture where people have a lot of integrity. They're not going to steal your games, and actually one way to protect you is the opposite. The more you share it, the more people will know that it came from you, and no one will want to steal it. And there have been some cases of some games like plagiarizing other games, and it's the community who fights back, who says, no, wait, no, that guy made it. So
Right.
ayun. But that even that rarely happens. And also just understanding that an NDA is meant to protect something that already has a monetary value, and an idea that's not yet finished. No one's going to steal that, because they would what a person would want to steal is something that's already selling. And
Mhm.
that's why
Yes.
fake games are
Yep.
usually what the best sellers. What's this, Exploding Kittens, stuff that's already out there.
And I
And
know
Yeah.
some fake production factories would
mhm,
actually retheme like
Mhm.
really
Yep.
best-selling games
mhm,
Mhm.
just so that they can sort of avoid, but people can
mhm.
still see, hey, this is
Yes.
still the same thing. What are you doing?
What's
Right?
what's the
And
one?
people,
What's the Splendor one? The Stone Merchant or something.
it was something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yung Bang was also redone
Uh
in
huh.
The bang,
Taiwan.
yes,
They
Mm-hmm.
that
called
one
it
looked good.
WTK, War of the Three Kingdoms.
Yeah,
But it's
Mm,
basically the same
retheme.
game.
yeah.
Yes,
So
so
if you're just at a playtest session, you really don't need to worry, because as cruel as it may sound, you don't have anything worth stealing yet. That's just the truth of it.
that
Yeah.
is true.
Hmm.
There are so many designs. I I personally have so many designs, but there was nothing at the moment because I haven't published them. I haven't gone
Hmm.
through the whole exercise of getting through the prototyping stage and getting to the development stage. There, so yeah, even if they could be such really great designs, until the point I am able to get them out the door, they're
Mm-hmm.
not really worth anything at
Yep.
the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideas are
Yeah.
cheap. It's the execution that actually
Yeah.
is what makes something marketable and what
Mm-hmm.
makes something have worth. And unfortunately, you can't get to the execution stage if you don't share your ideas with other people. There's pretty much it's impossible for one person to produce a board game, or for that matter, pretty much anything in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You will always need to rely on somebody else. So you need you to at least have trust with a certain group of people to get something to execute something, to make
Mm-hmm.
that idea worth something in the real world. So that's
Yeah.
just the reality of it.
Yeah, I always felt, coming from a tech world. I always
Mm-hmm.
felt that game design is very open source. It
Mm-hmm.
because the my design, like the implementation, the source code, like how you play it, you it's really shared. There's no secret because as
Yeah.
soon as you play the game, everything about the game is no longer hidden. Every
Mm-hmm.
aspect, except maybe like legacy games, if you unless you
Yeah.
open them all up. But generally speaking, the source code is shared. And
Mm.
as soon as that happens, that's why you have all these permutations of deck building and worker placement and all of these. But still, people are still buying Dominion. It's not
Mhm.
like all of these games have, stolen from Dominion.
Mm.
It's not, because people are still buying Dominion for Dominion. Yes, there are deck building games now that have improved on the system, but you still see them in stores. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of where it is that about game design.
Mhm.
Cool.
All right. So let's go on to the second. The second is the marketing werewolf. So
do
the
they
marketing werewolf,
shift
yeah, they
into
shift.
the marketing?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it's someone who, they're playtesting their game, but at the end suddenly there's like they transform. They're no longer I'm a designer asking for feedback. They're just a pure salesperson. So the difference is, okay, so we're not saying it's wrong to sell your game. What we're saying is that you if you're going to go to a playtest session to have your game playtested, you should be open to feedback and to change. If you're just there to sell the game and you already think the game, you're not going, you have no intention of taking the feedback, changing the game in any way, then you probably shouldn't be playtesting. I mean, you can
Mm-hmm.
just go to some other event, but
Yep.
I mean,
Right.
playtesting is for playtesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a difference between playtesting and demoing.
Yes,
I
Yes.
there you
think
go.
yun yung crucial na distinction. If you're trying to sell something, you're demoing it. If you're
Mm.
trying to playtest, lalo na if you're going to attend, let's say, an unpub session, don't waste other people's time
Mm-hmm.
with a demo of a done product, whether it actually deserves to be a finished product or not. Di ba? That's
if
beside the
if
Mm.
you're
question.
not willing
That's not
to
the
take on
point.
feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kung
Yeah.
tapos na-print na siya, there's really
Mm.
no point, di ba?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And people who are demoing games are welcome at meetups, right? They're welcome to come, they're welcome to show, hey, this is the game I made. Just
But you have to
be
inform.
clear from the start. Yeah, don't
Yes.
say you're
Mhm.
playtesting. It's
Yep.
perfectly fine, you can come
Mhm.
sell your game, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially I think
Sometimes.
with Unpub, because a lot of the people who attend Unpub, whether they have a design or not, have have an intention to design eventually. And
Mm.
I think a big part of the culture of Unpub is yung parang I'll play test your game but you play test mine.
Mm.
So meron kayong parang ano parang unspoken na
Agreement.
agreement that will scratch each other's back. But if you're just
Mm.
there to and you misrepresent what you're doing, then medyo parang nababiolate yung unspoken agreement na yon.
Mm.
And I think that's where the main problem of this marketing werewolf is. It's pero pagka upfront ka naman, it's not really a problem as long as
Yeah.
people know what you're doing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So, how to handle the marketing werewolf? Actually, I realize now I made an assumption here. So the assumption is that the game is like kind of half baked, because usually that's the usual marketing werewolf is.
Mhm.
They haven't really been to play tests. They already finished the game on their own with maybe just their group of friends, and they come to a play test to sell. And so the game is kind of half baked. It's not like a fully completed commercial product. Um,
Mm, okay.
and honestly, my personal recommendation, if you on how to handle marketing werewolf, is you have to be brutally honest. Like if you really think the game is not something you would buy, you should just say it outright, because most people, once they've already put down the money for the printing, or or the money for the art files, they've already paid the artist, they paid the designer. It's hard. They have like this invulnerability to like, if you can't, how you sometimes you soften your words so that you make sure the other person doesn't get hurt. But with the marketing werewolf, it's like they have armor already. Anything you say that's not direct, they might misconstrue and hear it differently. Now, oh, maybe my game isn't so bad and stuff. And sometimes the marketing werewolf, there's still time for them to to not push through with the printing, not to put in the down payment. So sometimes it helps to just be brutally honest, because you're saving them from, like,
Yeah,
the
normally I
financial
would
problem
ask.
of that.
Um, the way I would do it is I would ask if they're interested for my opinion. I would
Mm,
ask where are they in the stage of their publishing process. If they're already fully committed, I would tell them, well, if you're already there, nothing that I would say can stop what you're already doing if it
mhm,
needs
mhm,
to. So, but I would ask first if they would be interested to hear my honest opinion, and then I will itemize where the games, which parts of the game doesn't work.
mhm,
And I've heard this so many times with many, like, really, like, well, really good designers, but they're so, sometimes they're a little bit, it's because they're good, they're also uh, stubborn on certain
mhm,
aspects. And even if,
mhm,
like, yes, I know that's thematically connecting, however, it
mhm,
feels bad.
mhm,
Yeah, but, and then you're like, okay, well, I'm telling you, as a player, that don't work for me because this,
mhm,
and you can study it for yourself. And that's kind of
mhm,
it. I mean, you can't also, it's not our responsibility to, to make the decisions for them. We're just there to give
mhm.
feedback as a playtester.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Let's move on. Okay. So the market.
Yeah. So
The
if you
next.
are a marketing
Oh.
werewolf, I
Mhm,
think the main thing that you want to take notice, though, is that if people are giving you feedback, what I often try to tell myself is, instead of reacting and defending, I would want to ask why they feel that way.
mhm,
Why do they think that's the case? And
mhm,
digging deeper, asking better, inquiring questions.
mhm.
Mhm.
What part didn't work?
Yeah.
What were you expecting? Try to probe.
Mhm,
That way, if you probe and ask more questions, you'll get a clearer perspective why it didn't work for them. You
mhm,
can then measure that with your vision of the game, and it can still be the same. It could be an offbeat. People have told to me Folded Wishes is an absolute garbage.
mhm,
They will never play it, and I had to ask, oh, okay, I, that's all right. Can I ask which part did work? Oh, I'm confused with everything.
mhm,
And is it because of the icons, the how I taught the game, and so forth? Because the other players understood. So I had to probe. I
mhm,
eventually learned where they're coming from,
mhm,
and it gives you a better insight how to
mhm.
handle. And so you don't close yourself. Feedback is always valuable, whether
Yeah.
it's positive or negative.
Mhm. Yeah. And also another advice, if you are, so I think with a subset of the marketing werewolf, should have put a subtype, is that these are the people who are actually shy to go to a meetup, right?
Mm-hmm.
They finish the game with their group of friends because they feel shy to come to a meetup. They want to, for it to be finished before they actually present it to strangers. And
But they've already done too
yeah,
much.
yeah, they've already done too much, and I can understand that. So another tip to resist your inner marketing werewolf, if that's the case for you, is don't be shy. We've all been there, designers kind of, we understand. So even if you have something that's still quite raw, it's okay to show it early on. Um,
I have
just so
played
you're
Nico's games that was really him finishing writing down on an index card, and then
yeah,
that
yeah.
was it. Like,
Mm,
he had may supot ng mga kono ng mga stuff,
mm, yeah,
and nagsusulat si Nico, and here's my game. Like, and to us as designers and as playtesters, that's perfectly fine.
yep,
Explain to us what we're looking at. We're gonna use
yeah.
our imagination.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, don't be shy. Don't wait for your product to be finished before you
Mhm.
bring it to a meetup. Bring it early.
Test early.
Yeah.
just like
Okay.
for
Uh,
pandemic. Test early.
yeah, test early.
Okay,
Okay.
let's move on.
Next is the
Mahaba pala to,
zombie
Nico.
designer. Okay.
Okay, go, go, go.
This is the zombie designer. The zombie designer is kind of brain dead, unprepared sabaw when they come up to the session because, well, maybe they spent the whole night cramming their prototype. They underestimated how much work it would take to prepare for the playtest. And so when they're finally there, they made it, but they're not all there. So they're disorganized, they're ruffling through notes. Sometimes they left some key components at home because they were rushing to get to the session. So yeah, okay, so this might be one of the this I'm a little guilty of this, of being the zombie designer.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I can I've this has
I
happened
think
to me.
I've witnessed that maybe
Yeah.
not that much. Just like
Yeah.
Yeah. Ito yung mga
So
times na sinasabi ko sa kay Nico, pwede bang wag ikaw yung mag-demo? Pa, pa, pa,
yeah.
pa, paturo mo na lang kay Aaron or kay Marks.
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Um, oh yeah, so Marx has a good suggestion for the
Mark's
marketing werewolf. There we go.
Mark said, "Don't be shy. It's easier said than done. I guess a better tip would be to attend the sessions before presenting something.
Yeah,
Absolutely, and
yes,
that even connects with the zombie designer.
come as a
Maraming,
playtester. Yeah,
maraming sessions. Hindi mo
yes,
kailangan mag-present na.
Mhm.
yes.
Although, parang nakakasayang, di ba? Like, pupunta ako, wala akong dala. Okay lang yun.
Okay lang yun.
In fact, meeting the people and discussing games after, I
Mhm,
remember, di ba, one of the sessions that we did, and this was online, we
mhm,
played the game. Playing the game was like 30 minutes to an hour. Discussing the
mhm.
game was like 3 hours.
Oh
It
yeah,
took us. It's like, that was more fruitful than actually playing the game. So that's
yeah,
I think
yeah,
the big part of it. Na it's not just having to present the game. There's so much more about Unpub and the playtesting meetups where you're geeking out on the minute details of the
mhm,
difference between the values of this card versus that card and why the
mhm,
designer chose it this way, what was the intention of this icon and so forth. So
mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
attend the meetups when they are available, and also join the ones online. And if they're and yeah, it's okay to not have something fully prepared. You can just tell people about the concept of the game, share it,
mhm,
here's
yep,
some ideas, and but tell them I can't playtest anything right now because it's not fully fleshed out.
yeah,
But if you guys are interested in listening to and give me some comments on like how to move forward. So it's not commenting about the game, but just like
yeah,
what are your next steps. That's how you should approach it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I think yung Mark's suggestion, actually, I think that's a better first step for anybody who wants to bring something to Unpub. First, attend sessions, get a feel for the culture, so you can avoid these disasters that we're discussing right now.
mhm, mhm, yep,
Yung pagpunta mo doon, okay na okay na, na-design mo na lahat. Tapos hindi ka pa pala nakakagawa ng rulebook or at least ng structure how to
Mhm.
explain the game. Wala na.
yeah,
Good game na yon, GG na. hindi,
yep.
hindi asa ka pa ma-explain mo siya.
Yep, that's the zombie designer. I've seen that
Yeah.
yung may notebook tapos saan ko nga nilagay yung just going through all of the pages kasi like where does this start again and ganon. Yeah.
Yep.
Um yep. So yun so how do you handle the zombie designer? This is very common with first timers and on my opinion is just to be understanding for them because sometimes they really didn't know what to expect. This is really their passion project. They're there because they want to be there, but they still haven't figured things out yet. So sometimes you could, if there's a session, you could like maybe swap them out first. Make them the last game.
Yeah.
Give them some time to collect themselves. Magkape muna sila, And then let them know it's okay. It's happened to the best of us. It's happened to me a lot. So just learn from it. Next time, next
Yep.
session, come in a little bit more prepared. Um, and yun. And then tips to resist it yourself is, um, yeah, actually we already discussed it. You can ask other designers like what are the stuff you need to do to prepare,
Right.
and just use your previous experiences so you know what you need to prepare
Parang
for this.
kumbaga, you can sort of show, eto na yung what I have, ano pa yung
Mhm.
kulang ko. Because you might be overwhelmed with what you're building also. And then people would
Yes.
say, where's your turn structure? Do you have a player in? Stuff like that. Just to sort of get you back going. Oh, right, right. I need to do that. And I always appreciate it when designers or playtesters, uh, when you give feedback and they were like, "Oh, you're right," and then they open up a notebook, start writing down. I need to
Yes.
do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Definitely bring some paper with you when you. Ha, si Derek, ito pa. Yes, Derek. Isa pang zombie designer calling you out
Zombie.
of that.
Oh, zombie designer din to eh.
Pareho kami ni Derek eh. Yeah, we have these times okay, nandyan na. Tapos what's next? Yun. Yeah, nagpuyat.
Okay.
Puyat. Okay, next. The Merfolk Enchanter. So this one is interesting, and I'm guilty of this too. So
Ako
the
din.
yeah, I think once you're published, you have a big chance of being this. Because okay, well, let's explain first. So the Merfolk Enchanter is someone who is um, really fun in hosting the playtest. A designer who is really accommodating, says a lot of jokes, is very cheerful, and they end up becoming more fun than the game that they are playtesting. And they end up overcompensating. Like the playtesters are laughing, they're having so much fun, but is it because of the game or just because the host is super entertaining? So
Right.
that's the Merfolk Enchanter. Um, and sometimes the game is actually not that fun. If you remove the designer and just
Mhm.
leave the game on its own, it's a very mediocre experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of this because I've had to demo actual games in actual conventions, and sometimes you end up taking using that demo persona in a playtest, which is not always ideal because you end up having this problem wherein you're overcompensating for your game.
Yeah. Yeah. I uh for the card game, the epidemic card game that I designed, I often really try to catch myself because I would make side comments of like sort of explaining what's happening. So for example, there was like a sudden influx of viruses
Mm.
in one city. Oh, ito na, ano, mukhang ano to eh, mukhang Pasay kasi ito yung nangyayari eh.
Mm.
And I really need to catch myself from that because it gives thematic, like a layer
Yes.
of thematic enjoyment. But that wouldn't be there if I wasn't there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Of maybe other people might connect it, but not everyone. So it affects the gameplay experience unintentionally, right?
Yeah.
So I
Me,
also am very guilty of this.
yeah, me, because I know people who know me, they know I like making dad jokes and puns. So I have to hold myself back when I'm playtesting sometimes because, I don't want, yeah, I want to see if the game is fun on its own.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, so how to handle, actually, the handling of the Merfolk Enchanter is not on the playtester's end because, I mean, they're having
They
fun.
yeah,
Yeah,
they wouldn't
it's
notice
understandable.
that it's not part of the game.
Yeah. So the Merfolk Enchanter, it's on the Merfolk Enchanter's side of of things to be
Yeah.
self-aware. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you do meet a Merfolk Enchanter, try to focus your feedback on, really just focus on the game, especially on, if you have any
Mm-hmm.
design fundamentals, and like you're talking about the decision making, the balance. You try to focus on that, not on the person presenting.
Yeah, if you can compartmentalize
Yes.
the person who taught the game and the game itself, if there's a chance for you to do that, then you can give feedback.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like, think of it that if you would be explaining this game yourself to somebody else, could you do it? Would you understand how it works? Um, in that way, can you convince them to play it? Those type of questions would be how you can guide yourself, whether you're just being enchanted by the theatrics, or
Hmm.
the game is really something that's interesting.
Yep.
Hmm. And park those skills because they'll eventually become useful when you're demoing. If,
Yes,
if
Yep.
you're
you
demoing,
need them still.
yeah, if you're
just
demo,
the right place and time.
yeah, if you're demoing, put that out in full force because that will get you sales. Yep. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Okay, cool, cool, cool.
The next. This one actually is most of these for the next one. A lot of the input came from Sir Freddy. So the SpongeBob.
Although
So
I didn't name him SpongeBob.
yeah, that was me. I named him the SpongeBob. So the SpongeBob is someone who will beguile you with this fantastic idea of a game, either bring you to distant worlds that you've never heard of with this interesting cast of characters, or innovative mechanics that you get you really excited. But then when you finally say, okay, I'm so hyped up, let's play, they there's nothing to play. It's whatever, it's unplayable. It's just ideas. There's no actual game yet. There, the subtypes of the SpongeBob are the George R. R. Martin. So this is the world builder, the one who come up with all the lore but no mechanics. So then there's the Calvin, from Calvin and Hobbes, who is it's a hodgepodge of mechanics and ideas. But just because you have mechanics doesn't mean the game is playable. So it's just like a
Parang yung
combination
ano
of
to yung
mechanics.
mga, it has deck building and
Yes.
Yeah.
drafting and air control and bidding and secret hidden rules all in one.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. And you just stick
Yeah.
in more mechanics into it.
If it's Tuesday, it's not deck building, it's drafting. Yeah.
Cool,
So
cool,
there,
cool.
and then the third is the Doctor Strange. So the Doctor Strange is more of like, um, they don't have a win con yet. They don't know how the players don't know how to win the game. The core mechanics aren't there yet, but all the details of the highly specific complex rules, how specific situations on if this character meets this character, this is how they fight, and this character is this is how they're ranged, and so they're into the complicated rules are all fleshed out, but the basics aren't there, so you still can't play the game. So
Yep.
that one, yeah.
And
Um,
again, no problem in world building, no problem in
yes,
trying out designs. It's just that what we're saying from a playtesting perspective, there's nothing yet to work with, right? So that's your
yes.
handle, right? How do you
Mhm,
handle SpongeBob? If you can't play anything yet, there's nothing that we could give feedback on.
mhm.
Although I did make some just suggestions earlier, you could explain that upfront. I don't have
Yes,
anything playable yet. This is the world I'm looking at. These are the mechanics.
yeah.
That's something interesting, and people can make feedback there. And then that's maybe like a 15-minute conversation. You can start playing
Yes,
another game.
yeah.
But you don't have to like force them to play a game that's not yet there, and you're sort of just pulling rules off the air,
Mhm. Yeah,
trying to connect one step to
Yeah.
another.
and
My
and
my
also, yes.
there are people who are much better at world building and imagining things na ganito. And if that's your strength, then I would suggest that you probably collaborate with a more technical designer.
Mhm.
Yun. So you each complement each other's strengths.
Mhm.
Yep.
Pero paminsan kasi frustrating like for example, for me to hear all this wonderful backstory complete with history, and then there's no game. Parang wow,
Mm.
Yeah.
nabitin parang wow, excited ka na. Tas, so how does this play? Ah, we're not there yet. I don't actually have a game yet. Oh, okay.
Oh,
No,
but I
it's
also
you
suggest
roll
you might.
dice and then you move your meeple forward number of spaces based on the and then you see what happens.
Mm.
Ah, I see.
I would also suggest that maybe game design or specifically board game design may not be your creative medium.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should be a writer or maybe dabble into
Yeah,
RPGs.
yeah.
That's
Tabletop
fair.
RPGs. There are a lot of, if you're really good into world building, there are a lot of, try out tabletop RPGs. They're very sort of rules light RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So the rules for the RPG itself, the framework of it, it's very, very short. So
Mhm.
there are so many systems like that. If you have tried enough, if you have played enough, you can find what inspires you to fit your world, and then you can start designing from there. From there, you
Mhm.
can keep distilling that, and you can probably come up with a board game. But you need a little bit of experience to sort of get from that point to a game state. I have a friend who is so good at writing and world building, but to be honest, I couldn't make a game from his world. I already have permission to make games for his world, but I'm like still, how do I? There's sometimes there's such a distance between the two that you have to really work on sort of slowly getting there. So
Mhm.
that's kind of my suggestion for that.
Yeah, actually, and as earlier said, we don't mind having this conversation about your ideas. Although
Mhm.
I would suggest you place it at the end of the Unpub event or the meetup so that people with actual games can have their games play tested first. And like actually 2 months ago, we had someone bring an RPG to Unpub, and
Nice.
yeah, it was really interesting. We didn't actually play it though because it was kind of a last minute thing. But we still spent maybe an hour or two just discussing his setting, his system. He had some questions about like, does this resolution mechanic feel thematic and stuff? And it was still very enlightening, and it was
Yeah.
still a really good discussion, and that's okay.
Yep.
So
And
there,
that
so just yes.
manage the expectations now, be upfront with what your game
Mhm.
currently delivers and what it still lacks. Yes,
Yeah.
it gives playtesters and people that will be playing your game a better context how to help you. Kasi
Yes.
end of the day, the playtesters are actually trying to help the designers. That's really
Yes.
the case. Kasi we could play normal games. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
so many games we could be playing. So that hour or 2 hours or 3 hours we will be spending to play your game, that's with a partial game. It's not yet complete, but we're
Yes.
there to help you out. So yun yung value talaga ng playtesters. Actually, napaka unsung hero ng mga playtesters. Kasi
That is true.
designers always get all the credit, but honestly, without play testers, it's never easy to say your game is actually any good.
Yeah, I mean, imagine lang kung gaano ka nakakatamad di ba? Like you have this unplayed game in your shelf, how nakakatamad it is to open it and like figure out this new game. But in a meetup, you're doing that like, 2 or 3 times in one day with an unfinished game
Yeah.
that you're not even sure if it's, complete. And yeah, so it's a lot of work on the playtesters,
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
So let's go.
Next.
So yeah, just the tip to resist your inner SpongeBob. Just work on making something playable. Just get the core mechanics down. So at least there's something to test. There's something the playtesters can actually give feedback on. So there. Okay, this one. The next is I'm most proud of this type. The name of this one. The Revampire.
Yes.
Okay. So the Revampire. So the Revampire is the one. Okay, so this is someone who has been to multiple sessions, multiple meetup sessions, and whenever they come to a session, they bring the same game, but it's not the same game. It's completely overhauled. It's completely revamped. The theme's probably the same, but like the mechanics, there's some carryover, but everything else has been like, it's new. It's something new, completely different. Um, and so instead of the game like moving forward into like a final completed game, it's in an endless loop of
Mhm.
reinvention. And some previous iterations might even be better than the future iterations. So yeah, it's like the revampire can't really just commit to one like base design. So yun, the a subtype of a revampire is the blob. The blob is just absorbs everything from the session. Anything the playtesters say, any comments, they don't filter. They take everything and incorporate everything, which is, you're not supposed to. This is what we call design by committee, which you shouldn't do. The
Mhm.
play, I mean, you're as a designer, you're still supposed to filter what the playtesters say, because not everything will fit to your vision. If you take everyone's comments and use them all, your game will be torn apart into different directions, and you
Yes.
don't want that either.
There and
Yeah.
always remember, play testers are not seeing your vision.
Yep.
As the
Yes.
designer, you have a vision. The play
Mhm.
testers are giving feedback based on like their personal human feedback, and that's
Yes.
what you are testing
Mhm.
and trying to figure out. But that doesn't mean that whatever their feedback is,
Yep.
it's for you to verify if it moves you towards your vision or not.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yun paminsan what happens when when the blob uh, starts listening to everybody, especially with some testers who are very specific with their suggestions, like
Yes.
add this card, add this character.
Mm.
The next time the blob comes with the game, talagang it's like suffering from so much bloat. It's
Mm.
hardly recognizable and it's hardly playable
Yeah.
because of
Mm.
so much bloat. So you have to you we're not asking you to reject the suggestion, but you probably do still have to understand where the playtester is coming from,
Yes.
but
Mm.
you do not necessarily have to take everything in,
Mm.
di ba?
Yeah.
Yun lang.
Yeah. You have to filter the suggestions and the comments based on your vision of what you want the game to be. So, yun. How
Okay.
to handle a revampire?
Oh, by the way,
Uh,
I
yeah.
remember something. This is
Yes.
the Revampire is actually one for me. For me, when I see this happening, it's really
Mhm.
very frustrating for me to see it because usually makikita mo yung, oh, this game has potential. Talagang parang, oh, parang malapit na to, ah. And then it comes back and then it's actually worse.
Saan
Mhm.
And
napunta?
then it loses the core of what
Uh,
made it work before, and then it has so many things added to it that it's yun nga hindi na nga siya recognizable and becomes
mm,
unplayable. So this is probably the most frustrating for me, not from a point of view na naiinis ako, but dahil sa nanghihinayang ako
mm,
when this happens. And paminsan umaabot sa point na nawawala na lang yung game and it's forgotten
mm,
because the designer himself or herself becomes frustrated, but he or she doesn't understand why the game is stuck in that eternal revamping na hindi niya
mm,
nakikita na nasa kanya pala yung problema.
mm,
So it's very frustrating for me to see something like this happen.
mm. Yeah.
Yes. And we've
Um,
seen this many times.
yes. This is actually a lot of the previous archetypes are generally plague like those who are beginning in their design journey.
Mhm.
The revampire is usually a designer who's in the intermediate stage, and sometimes even like even experienced designers can fall to this. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I took feedback and sort of also brought some of my designs to like weird directions because of feedback. And after a while, I go, wait, wait, wait. I gotta reset. That
Mm-hmm.
no longer works. Which iteration worked again? This one, and I'm going back there. I'm like throwing away, deleting the files of all of the incarnations that I've done, and
Yeah.
yeah, go back to the one that works.
Yeah, sometimes you really just have to roll back, and that's okay. You know. So yun. So how do you handle a revampire? Well, if you're designing a game and you see that, I share the same sentiment with Sir Freddy. It's frustrating, not like you're angry at the person, but you're like you were excited to see how this
Yeah,
game was going to become, and then it suddenly went in a completely different direction, or it's a completely different game. So it's frustrating,
yeah,
and let's just be honest and tell them, I really liked the previous iteration much better. I hope you had just stuck with that and developed that one further instead of building everything up again from scratch. um and okay, and how to resist your inner revampire. So if you have that, you're kind of just riding what you think is the most exciting thing to do when your game is going around in circles. My tip is, um sometimes a designer also feels like, this game that I'm making, it is the one great game that I'm going to make. This is my, my, what's the word, yung
magnum
well,
opus.
yes, this is my magnum opus. And to not think that good designers are, generally, it's more, not one hit wonders. They're kind of, making a whole portfolio of works. So if you have a good idea, you don't need to take your current game and change it to that good idea. You can just use that good idea and make a completely new game instead of, scratching the game you're working on. Save those ideas for future projects.
Mhm.
Okay. Are we move? You guys want to
And
add
maganda yung
anything?
comments ni Marks regarding
Oh,
the blob and the types of feedback that people give
okay.
that
Yeah.
may
So
derail the designer.
Mm-hmm.
a tip would be to treat the sickness, not the symptom. Discern if the tester's feedback is merely patching an underlying fundamental problem in the game engine. Good playtesters will say if the engine is bad anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but that is normally if the playtester is a designer.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Pero Marks, meron pang second part to eh. Yung playtesters naman, the
Oh,
types of
yeah.
playtesters.
Yeah. Wait. What?
Yes.
What does Marx's second of those? Sometimes
Sometimes
people.
people give feedback just because they want to see this, that, or whatever they think it's
Yep,
cool, or maybe they feel bad about losing if they had this thing, they would have won, something like that. That's true.
yep,
Yes,
yep.
So you
that
have to
is
really
true.
discern whether the feedback
Yes.
is commenting about the game or their personal experience.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
which is why you
Oh, so
always want to ask.
I
Um,
also. Yeah, you have to understand the context. You can't just take the feedback alone. You have to understand the context of the feedback.
mhm.
Okay.
I think designing as a process is easier to imagine than development, which is where the revampire should be already if they
Mm-hmm.
have a good base
Mm-hmm.
design. So maybe the game designer can equip themselves with more development tools. Yes.
Yeah.
So the
Mm-hmm.
the the thing about revamping your design, I for me, especially with coming up with designs, although Nico would I put something also here that's similar to that. I try not to add, like I start out with a game, the game looks like this, and then every iteration it should go like this. For
Mm-hmm.
me, that's my personal design style. I would always try to compress until I have
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is a really good working core, and then look at the previous ones I've left off, and then
Mm-hmm.
pick up things from there.
Yeah.
I try not to go from very small and then I add stuff because the problem is normally my core might be problematic and I wasn't sure that it was problematic.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes what you think is your core, there's something smaller that's even a
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
more precise, more streamlined core.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. So the next would be the mimic. So the mimic is someone who they it's their first time they've attended as a playtester, or they're attending a meetup. They're now here as a designer, and so they finally have something to show. And the thing is, the game that they're showing, it seems very similar. And then you start to realize, wait, this might be a game we already play tested last session with someone else, or it's actually just like a retheme of a commercially available game. It's the mechanics are very similar. The worst case would be actually that it is the exact same game, just with a
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
different theme, different art, different names, but the abilities, the numbers are all the same. And the worst case is when asked, "Hey, isn't this just game X?" Their standard reply would be, "Oh, it's okay. Game mechanics cannot be copyrighted." And straight to the legal defense.
uh,
Yeah,
like not even um, sort of uh, asking, do you feel that there are parts that are different that makes it unique? You
yeah,
know, so yeah, agree.
mhm, yeah. Although I would say that the mimic comes in varying degrees.
Mm-hmm.
The worst is already going straight to the legalistic reply. That's a little bit problematic. But okay, so how to handle a mimic? So the mimic is the reason why the MNDA exists. Basically, they're the people who the MNDA are afraid of. So when a mimic appears in a playtest session, usually the more experienced designers or the organizers, they have to handle it. So to make sure that the integrity of the meetup workshop is maintained. So there's a lot of ways to handle it, like explaining why game mechanics cannot be copyrighted, that it's kind of just a more of a legal loophole, more, but there are still like moral and ethical issues with copying games. And but also understanding that at the early stages of being a designer, being a copycat is not really bad. It's not a big deal as long as you don't commercialize or claim ownership over the game. Because with a lot of
Yeah,
cases, you start with let's say a lot of game designers start their journey because they really love this. There's this favorite
Mm-hmm.
games, really love it. They want to edit it a bit, homebrew it a bit and stuff like that. So if that's your design journey, then you are starting out as a mimic, but you want to add your own flavor to the game, and that's perfectly okay, as long as you're not commercializing it. And
uh,
eventually in the design process, you might come up with something that stands on its own and has its own identity. So yeah.
yeah. I've experienced this, and it was even interesting because I was the one play testing,
Hmm.
and the game was being presented to me, and I had to comment. This mechanic is my game, which I just taught you
Hmm.
last week. And the thing is, again, it's okay if you're inspired of that mechanic. However, you didn't understand the core idea of that mechanic.
Yes.
And because you didn't understand why it is interesting, this part of your game is now broken and it doesn't make sense because you're missing the point. You're missing
Mm,
the point of the why I designed it like that. So let me explain it to you and see if that still fits your vision. Of course,
mhm,
even now that they had that feedback, they sort of were able to like find their own way. But
mhm,
if I didn't give it like that, I
Mm-hmm.
just said, this looks like mine, and never really explained why theirs didn't work,
mm,
or why it's really just a copy and there's nothing um, behind it. They won't be able to improve. So as a playtester, I have a game designer advantage. That means I can give that feedback. Sometimes for the mimic, they won't be encountering people like
yes.
that, and to them it's like, wow, it's like that the TV series that he traveled back in time and started composing Beatles songs.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so if you start telling people, "Hey, I have this game," it's you buy buildings and you put them together, and they can join depending on the color,
Uh,
right? And it's like stocks, but it's on like corporations, and they can be mergers.
Parang imagine if the world forgot about Richard Garfield or something like that.
Yes.
Then you can pretend to have designed Magic the Gathering.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that'll be crazy.
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah. So yun, the mimic isn't so bad. Especially when it's usually someone, as Ron mentioned, it's someone who has starting their design journey, and maybe they just don't have that many tools yet in their toolbox. So
Yep.
when they play tested your game, they added that new tool into their toolbox, and now they want to use it right away.
Yeah, and they're
So
like, "Ooh, that's very interesting," and then they were inspired by it. They
yeah.
just were not um, informed enough of
Yes.
why those were designed were chosen for that specific scenario.
Yeah.
Mm.
Aya made a comment in
Mhm.
Balangay, the development process means identifying the biggest risk problem at the time and addressing just that. Then evaluating again after testing that version. I think it is always dangerous to implement too many changes at once. Yes,
This is to the blob. Yeah.
this is to the blob.
Vampire.
Yep, agree,
Yeah.
agree. If your game drastically changed from the previous iteration, it's very difficult for you to discern what went wrong. Because
Mm-hmm.
if it suddenly didn't work the next time,
Mm-hmm.
out of the 10
Yep.
things you added, how would you know which one wasn't working?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, yep, that's true.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Meron
even
akong
even in
ano,
development, I do
yeah.
the same thing. I only add one bit at a time, test, compile, test, compile, test, compile. I don't add too many things all in one go because I always tell myself, you're not a robot, you're not perfect. It's impossible that you will get everything correct all in one go.
mm,
So stop having that pride. Test one bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's
mhm.
easier.
Yep.
uh,
Yes, sir. You
so
were about to
sorry.
say something.
Yeah.
Ano, I was going to say nga na tama yung gano'n kasi talagang dapat isa-isa lang yung pagbabago 'pag may binabago ka
Mm,
and, kasi mahirap i-identify yung problema, eh, kung nasaan and,
mm,
sometimes may binago ka tapos gumagana pa rin, 'di alam mong ano, eh, pero pagka sabay-sabay kasi yung 10, wala na. Hindi mo
mm,
na alam kung saan nagkamali, 'di ba?
Yes,
So
yes.
yun talaga yung isang issue. Ta's gusto kong balikan yung mimic kasi, yung mimic, ah, I know you guys said that it's not so bad, but in my experience, dito ako usually nagiging medyo I have to admit that I've been very harsh with some of the people who have come as mimics.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Ah, medyo dito mabilis maubos yung pasensya ko. Kasi Kasi basically parang feeling ko nasayang yung oras ko. So I
Mm-hmm.
know it's a little bit harsh lalo na kung bago yung tao, but, yun yung it's just how I feel and I don't know if it's wrong, but it's usually when I feel somebody's wasted my time showing me something that I've seen before, especially if it's something I've seen before and they've implemented it in a worse way. Yung
Mm-hmm.
mm,
parang gagaya ka na lang nga, ginawa mo pang mali dahil hindi mo nga na-get. Katulad nung sinasabi ni Ron kanina, gagaya ka na lang, hindi mo pa na-gets kung ano yung core, kung what made
mm,
it work. So yung
Mm-hmm.
mga konting binago mo made it only worse. So
Yes.
talagang parang, you, you, usually if I see something like that, that's when I get really harsh with my
Well,
comments. So
medyo iba
I
din naman
don't know if
talaga,
it's a
sir,
personal
sa
defect
perspective.
on my part,
Mhm.
impatience ko lumalabas or something like that. But
Pero
uh,
sir, nasa publisher perspective kasi kayo eh.
yeah, yun din
Kumbaga,
yun.
sa amin ni Nico, playtesting, okay lang yun eh. Pero pag lalapit ka na sa publisher, kaya ka nga duman sa playtesting. Para pag lumapit ka na dun sa publisher, medyo armado ka na. Medyo kompleto na
yes.
yung information mo. Parang pag tinanong ka na, oh, how do we produce this? Dapat yun ang, kung papasa man o hindi, like, pwede kang feedback, oh, this doesn't fit my product line, but maybe we can um, sell it outside, or it doesn't work at the moment, or yun nga, how do we produce
Mm.
this? And yun na yung magiging, actually sir,
Yeah.
wala akong ka-idea din kung
And
anong produce. But
and you guys should be aware kasi madalas 'di ba? There's something that I kind of like and I'll ask you guys, have you seen something like this
yes.
before? Because as a
Mhm.
publisher, you really don't want to come up with something na lumabas na before na
Oh
parang
yeah.
Mhm.
it's exactly the same thing. 'Di
Yeah.
ba? As much as it's a bad look for a designer to be a mimic na publish, it's also bad for a publisher to just,
Yes.
do something like that, 'di ba? Na parang I don't know what I'm doing. Gumawa ko ng inulit ko ng kinopya ko pa yung ibang tao, 'di ba? So it
Yes.
looks really bad. So yun yung importante, which is why I guess if medyo na mabilis ano yung patience ko sa ganito.
Yeah.
So I guess tama kayo yun sa it's the situation is a bit different.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And
Yeah.
again, I think it's fine because yun nga there's a financial component already. There's
Mhm.
a time component already. It's very different. It's a very different setting.
Yeah.
I also would be, back. I've presented to um, some uh, designers then publishers then before, and they it's very quick. They'll say, okay, interesting, but it doesn't work for me at the moment, and then that's it. Alis ka na. Parang swerte ka na yun lang ang naging comment sa akin.
Mhm.
Parang, pero alam mo na, okay, that didn't work. Like, hindi talaga siya pumasa. Meron something wrong with what I'm doing. Pero ang hirap kasi yung pagka ina-explain mo pala, hold on, this is just this game.
Mm.
Ayun, medyo mahirap yun kasi parang talagang you didn't do your homework pagka
Yeah.
ganun na nangyari. And I think a big part of playtesting, and even us, we would be asking, guys, meron na ba kayong na-experience na ganitong game? Or meron ba kayong ganitong similarity? When I would come up with new designs, I do that research kasi nga I'm also afraid na makopya ko lang. Parang meron ba akong kamuka, ano yung naibigay kong bago. So,
Mhm.
kasi even for Folded Wishes, ina-itemize ko naman yung mga inspirations ko eh. I mentioned them, and so I was inspired by this game, this game, this game, this game, this game, and I looked at all of them, and I was still able to carve something a little bit different. So,
Mhm.
yun yung important doon.
Yeah. Tsaka, honest, if yung mimic, nagpipitch kay Sir Freddy, medyo malaking problema nga yun. Kasi, that also means you didn't get through playtesting. Parang
Oo.
dumiretso ka sa distributor at sa publisher. Kasi if it went through proper playtesting, dapat doon palang medyo ni-raise na ng mga playtesters na, wait, this already exists. So, I can
Yeah.
understand na why it's very infuriating nga. Pag punta ka ng distributor or publisher, yan.
Sabi ni Mark, good question to ask. What does your game have that game X doesn't, or why should I get this game as opposed to game X? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Those questions are asked to every deck building game being published right now. Every time you say to a publisher, "I have a deck building game," okay, and like you can't stop there. Hindi ka na pwedeng tumigil sa deck building. That's it. Nope. Like you have to now give something else because it's the mechanic, even worker placement. Grabe, pati worker placement ngayon,
Yep.
it's reaching to the same levels of exploration and deck building to the point that you
Mhm.
can't be just worker placement. You can't come in. I have a really nice light worker placement, and
Tsaka
Yeah.
yung
It's been done.
tanong yung tanong ni Marks, your answer has to be mechanical. It can't be,
Yeah.
oh, it's because the theme is different.
Yeah.
Hindi yan
Except we
It
have
has to be a
unicorns
mechanical.
or
not unless you have the license. Okay, that's maybe a different.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I
Ito yun, yeah.
mine because I have the license of Marvel. Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah. So, yun. When I say naman it's not so bad, kanina, the mimic, what I meant is you don't, slam the table and plagiarizer, you're a thief. You don't accuse them right there of being a thief or plagiarizer, because yeah, because that's not helpful. Some people kasi will feel nga that there is like theft happening, but pag early stages pa lang, wag muna. Let them
Just
get a
yeah, I
feel
think
of the
inform
design,
them.
the
Hey, this
benefits.
looks like this.
Hmm.
Hey, this feels like this, and please research.
Yes.
I would give them a reseta. Please check this game, this game, this game, this
Yes,
game. Kasi
yes.
kamukha yan ng game mo.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, okay, next.
last three.
Um,
You can
last,
do this.
the last two. This is the last
Last,
one.
Last,
last na to. This
Last
is
one
the
the
na
last
last
to.
one.
one. All right,
Yes,
perfect.
we have eight. So this one, the helicopter parent.
Oh,
So yeah, this one is actually, it hits of all levels of experience, because this one is a very emotional. Even if you're very experienced, it can happen to you. The helicopter parent is very overprotective and proud of their game, as if it were their
mm,
own child. So they get emotional from every piece of feedback. So yung alam mong someone says something good, tapos parang iiyak na yung tao kasi sobrang natutuwa siya. But on the other side, if you say something bad, they're going to be super defensive and like, no, my child is perfect and stuff like that. So yun, sometimes a meetup which is supposed to be like relaxing or discussing games can become heightened with a lot of emotional overcharges, and because of the helicopter parent. um, there are a lot of reasons why a designer would become a helicopter parent. Maybe they really, maybe they have a personal connection to the theme. It like it is a reflection of a hard time they went, something difficult they went through. Sometimes they've been working on this game idea for 10 years. There are people like that. They've been they've been working at it for a long time. Sometimes they've already spent money on it. So yon, basta the thing is there's an emotional aspect to the design. So the feedback session is can get very charged. So yon. Um, one subtype would be the window wiper. So every negative comment, there's a parang may sagot siya that that yeah, just
is
wiping,
that okay? Okay,
deflecting, everything's
okay.
deflecting.
I'm like, I
So
was trying to figure out when I was reading your like, is he talking about like the kung fu?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
like that
okay,
with the
okay.
wiper. So yeah, so there's gonna be like well, my friends found it fun, or my friends found it good, my family enjoyed it. That's the most common. Actually, I was trying to think of phrases I've heard, and I realized that that's how long it's been since a physical meetup, because I couldn't really think
No,
of
I
any.
well, I remember quite a lot.
Yeah,
Then on from people uh where oh syempre minsan they're already getting into the publishing
yeah.
stage or sometimes even published na, and you would ask like, so saan kayo nag-playtest?
Oh yeah,
uh and the reaction, oh, I've been playing testing this myself, endlessly for
10 years.
many hours, many months, many years. And you're going, that's not playtesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So but you dun pa lang parang okay,
Yeah, ang bigat,
wala na.
especially if you hear yung I've been working on this for 10 years,
Hmm.
medyo alam mong yung it's gonna be a
Emotional
heavy.
connection eh.
Oh, may ano na eh, yung kaluluwa niya nandun na sa game eh. So
Mm.
so yeah, if the hard part with the helicopter parent is they take every comment personally. There's no compartmentalization between them and their game. So a feedback, anything you say bad about their game, they take it as something bad about them, their self-worth, their identity. So that's where it can get kind of hard to deal with. Yeah.
Eh.
Yeah, pero ako, I have some games. I think I've presented them to Sir Freddy as early as parang a little after Q&V lang Sir, ito, game ko, and it didn't work kay Sir Freddy, and did a few iterations. So I could literally claim a game now that I can, di pa naman isang decade, pero 8 years na, 2 years na
Mm,
lang. Diba?
mm,
May isang decade na ako for some of those designs. I think, yeah, as parang a big lesson learned is that you really have to let go of some of your designs. They could
mm,
be really good designs, but they're very situational. They're
mm.
very good at what they do at that specific um, target market. But for the target market currently of sino yung kausap mo, maybe it doesn't fit. And because of
Yeah.
that, you know, that it doesn't mean that your game is not good.
Mm.
However, given that's the case, as a designer, kailangan marunong din tayo mag-let go and
Yeah.
pivot. Parang,
Yeah.
ay, hindi ba pwede yan? O sige, try ko to. Try
Mm,
natin to. How about if I do it this way? How about if I do it this way? Eventually, you'll find a way to get some of that design out there.
mhm,
And that's okay.
Yeah.
mhm,
Um, di ba si Mystic Veil, the designer of Mystic Veil, had this massive game that
mm,
was the original design. It was a big hero
mhm,
game with so many components. And ang big hit niya was when AEG sir, di ba? Si
Yeah,
Mystic Veil.
AEG.
yes.
When the lead designer saw the game and go, I like this part.
Mhm,
Let's make a game for this part. And then it was
Mhm.
just that part. The rest was sort of shelved.
mm.
Eventually, though, he did get to publish the game. Mas
Oh.
malakas pa rin si Mystic Veil.
What's the
Mm.
game? What's the full game called?
Yun, it's similar. You still have the sleeves with the colors, but you now have a board and you have a map that you're conquering. There are
No,
spells, tokens, resources.
no. I mean, what's the name of that game? Because I
I don't
didn't.
remember at the moment.
Okay.
Let
See,
me
yeah.
let me let me quickly
Yeah.
search it for you.
See.
Yeah. That.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pero yeah,
So.
it's not just that. You know, we mentioned Richard Garfield. Richard Garfield, when he met first with Peter Adgison, he was
Mm,
pitching something else,
mhm,
and then that was shelved.
oops.
And then eventually, may binigay sa kanyang idea si Peter Adgison na I want a game that people can play during conventions, and people can, that's something that's portable and people can bring with them when they're falling in line at conventions and stuff like that in between other games. That's where Magic the Gathering came from, and
Mm,
that, you know, it's 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 well, the biggest thing in tabletop, 'di ba? And
mhm,
the first game he pitched was actually Robo Rally, which eventually was published
mhm,
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
by Wizard of the Coast.
mhm,
So
Yes.
paminsan ganun lang talaga. But you
Timing
also have
lang.
most designers, yeah, hindi ba before we had the Q&A with Justin Gary,
mhm,
and
Yes.
I think yung amount of designs niya and number of games that's actually published, he said something like around ano eh, basta less than 10% yung actually survive eh.
mm,
90% plus gets culled.
mm,
Yan sa mga ideas niya. And that's ganun talaga yung idea, ganun. That's how this thing works.
mhm, mhm,
Yung name pala nung sa Mystic Veil, it's called Edge of Darkness.
Yeah,
mm,
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
it has card crafting, group deck building, using one shared deck, card-driven worker placement, threat tower, modular setup.
wow. Um.
It looks really good. But yun nga, it also, as soon as
Too
your
much.
game grows, medyo ano din siya eh, nagzo-zoom in din ng konti to a target market. Hindi rin
Yep.
siya as widely
Yes.
ang reach na. So it really depends. Okay lang yun. I think it was a good parang strategy to get Mystic Veil out first. And then eventually, yun nga, parang katulad ng din ng Magic the Gathering. Of course, Magic the Gathering outgrew Robo Rally. Robo
Mhm,
Rally is still a great game.
mhm.
Pero, yeah, who knew? Who knew?
Mystic Veil pala is one of the inspirations for Puti because you
Yes.
need sleeves for that game. That's
Correct,
like,
correct, correct, correct.
hey, yeah, you need sleeves for this game. So yeah. So
Yes.
yun. So going back this though, for me personally, I think the helicopter parent is the hardest to deal with Kasi emotional
Mm.
eh. The others are
Mhm.
more, you can reason it out. There's logic to it. Yung helicopter parent, it's it's a
Medyo
purely
ano na sila
emotion.
eh, fixed na
Yeah.
yung mind nila about their game eh.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is actually, if you're this type of designer, you're going to have a hard time getting your game published by a publisher,
Mm.
because most often than not, the publisher will have inputs, and if you're not able to incorporate those inputs, magkakaproblema kayo.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
pagka ganito ka and you really think that your game is perfect, your only route really is to self-publish, and then try your idea for yourself, di ba?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yun
Hopefully.
lang, at least from my point of view, if you're too defensive or you're not open to inputs, it's gonna be hard to work with
Yeah.
somebody like that.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's
So,
and yun, ako sharing my experience as a designer who had another publishing house publish my game. So you go into develop it. Wala talaga. Tapon mo pride mo. Kasi
mhm.
kung ano yung original design mo, talagang
Hmm.
they're
Yeah.
like, remove this, remove this, remove
Hihimayin
this.
yun.
Talaga sabi,
Paglabas, ha? Anak ko ba
wow,
'to?
ito pa rin ba yun? Should I claim? And then eventually you start seeing it. Like, oh, galing ah. Actually, yun pa rin
Yeah.
siya. Parang, alam mo
Yeah.
yung,
Yeah.
like in music, it, you can change the key, you can change
Yes.
the chords, but it's still the same song. So,
Mhm.
galing
Mhm.
eh, na nakuha talaga. Pero yun, you really have to lower your pride. Kasi you can't see the game flourish to its ideal state if magiging barrier mo yung heavily invested ka emotionally with your game.
Yep.
And again, if
Yun.
that's you,
Mhm.
okay lang yun. Just
Mhm.
know that it's gonna be more challenging, not unless you
Mhm.
do it personally. And again, it would do you more good if you can get better feedback. You would be open for feedback, but at least you can see other people's perspectives.
Mhm. So,
All right.
yun. Ako, yung, so just, so how, if you are a playtester of a helicopter parent, so some tips how to deal with it. So just first, you have to, it's easy to recognize if emotionally charged yung designer. You can kind of see yung medyo nagiging teary-eyed minsan. That's the probably the highest case. So yun, so just be emphatic, I guess. Sometimes it would help, if you have something negative to say about the game, which you probably will have because that's why they're playtesting it. You say some good things first, just so they medyo they
Soften the
feel
blow.
something nice, huh? So,
Soften the blow.
yeah, so it's kind of softened. But over at the end of the day, it's their responsibility to handle their emotions. You can't
Mhm.
take responsibility for their emotions. And if you're a helicopter parent, um, it would really help if you can compartmentalize your own like self image with that of the how well the game is doing, because it's sometimes you just really think too highly of your work and it's not true. So yon, and especially if it's your first time. Let's say you've been making this game for 10 years, 15 years. There are people like that, and then this is the first time they've actually come to a meetup, maybe because meetups never existed before. You're
Yep.
actually been designing way before game design has been a thing. um be happy, for in the fact that you're actually there, that you've brought yourself to a meetup. It's still a step in the journey of a game designer, and whatever happens, whatever people say about your game, that's still a step forward. So it's still something to be happy about, that you're moving forward in your design journey.
Yes.
So that's the eight um spooky designer Meeples. So, we have.
Thank you, Nico, for preparing the list. It's
Sure.
hopefully people that will be watching this also in the future
Mm-hmm.
would be able to gain some insight of how can they improve their playtesting, how experience their game design experience, and get them towards that state where they can get their game finished.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many ways to publish games nowadays, aside from self-publishing, Kickstarter, digital publishing,
Mm-hmm.
and of course,
Yeah.
getting it eventually into print.
Mm-hmm.
So, yon. Thank you, everyone, for
Yeah.
such a long episode. 8 lang yun, pero we knew that we would be also emotionally invested in in the people that we have met. Again, the reason why we cite this is we care about the time that people spend on their games, and we we hope that using the insights that you can gather here, that you can improve your game design, you can improve your overall uh, playtesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So, Nico, any upcoming projects that you are how's Tracy going?
Right now, I'm busy with other like non-game related work.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
yeah, there's it's still moving a bit behind the scenes, but stuff that I can't talk about. Yan yung pwedeng i-NDA talaga. So
That's true because
yeah,
those are already defined
license yan eh.
contracts. Yes, yes, yes.
Oo,
Agree,
oo.
agree. All right,
Yeah.
that's fine. Cool. Tapos yun, yung sa atin, Sir Freddy,
Mm.
inaasikaso ko na.
Yeah.
Yan. I
Ano
said
tayo,
some of
meron
the,
tayong time pressure dun, ha?
oo nga eh, oo nga eh.
Yeah.
Yun. So, pwede na, so,
Yeah.
thank you everyone for joining us. It has been
Mm-hmm.
quite a lengthy episode, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hope you guys gain some insight. Stay safe. I know that they're sort of unpacking and releasing the clamps
Mm-hmm.
of quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but please stay safe, stay protected, wear a mask. If you get a chance to get vaccinated, please do. It only helps,
Yeah.
and we hope to see you guys soon
Yeah.
at Unpub. We're excited for that.
Yeah.
And hopefully on our case, some game nights also in the future.
Yeah. I hope we have physical meetup soon. I mean,
Yes, looking
yeah. Oh,
forward to
and
that.
we'll see also when we can do the flip coin of this list, which is the playtesters, the spooky playtesters you meet in a
Sige,
in a
sige.
meetup. Yeah. Mm.
Let's see, let's see.
Let's see
Kasi
when we can do
December na yun next natin eh. Baka medyo awkward na ano eh.
spooky Christmas.
uh,
Ano, nightmare before Christmas.
let's see if we can squeeze in an episode somewhere in between. Let's
Yeah.
look through um, the upcoming episodes of Fireball Play. So, thank you everyone for joining us. Been a pleasure.
Good night.
Good
Night,
night. Good
everyone. Bye
night.
bye.
Bye.